Saturday morning, everyone. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. Summer solstice is in just 1 month from today, and heat will be building east this weekend into next week as it will feel like summer, especially as next week does draw closer. And then the tropics will be ramping up with possibly a tropical system closing in on the southeastern United States as we get into late next week. We'll get into those details as well as looking ahead to your Memorial Day weekend forecast with the temperature and the precipitation trends later on in today's video. Looking at the infrared satellite imagery as of this morning, we have that cold front dropping southeast here out of the Ohio Valley down into the southeast as of this morning, firing up some big time thunderstorms across south central Texas here this morning with lots of heavy rain, lightning, and hail as well. And going back to yesterday, this cold front did cause some havoc across portions of west central Texas. We actually had up to golf ball, if not tennis ball size hail reported across West Texas as of yesterday on Friday, May 19th. And we had 14 wind reports to go along with that. So we did have an active severe weather day from yesterday. But looking at the big picture going through today, we have that upper level ridge continuing to dominate across southwestern Canada and the Pacific Northwest. The heat will be on across those areas going through today and even into your Sunday, but it starts to stretch out a little bit farther eastward into the upper Midwest as we go into Sunday afternoon. So places like the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin will start to warm up a little bit more later on into this weekend. And you can see that reflected on our high temperatures. Today, we will be firmly into the 70s. Very pleasant conditions across the middle of the country behind that cold front. Some 60s lingering up here into Michigan, parts of the Ohio Valley, and New England. But all told, it will be a very pleasant Saturday out there for most of us across the eastern two-thirds of the country. The heat will be building across the west, multiple 90s out here where the center of that upper level ridge will be. But watch the heat start to build further east on Sunday. We introduced some low to mid 80s across Montana, the Dakotas, and parts of Nebraska on Sunday, with more of those 70s closing in on the southern plains, the Ohio Valley, and the Midwest going into your Sunday afternoon. And this comes along with some very light winds as well. So I know this time of year we get a lot of wind gusts here, 30, 40 miles per hour. We're really not seeing that through this weekend. Over the next 48 hours, we're really seeing more of the lighter winds, unless you're down here across the southern plains in association with a couple of these thunderstorms, then you could have some stronger wind gusts. But all told, very light winds going through the weekend. So definitely get outside and enjoy the nice sunshine and the nice warm conditions going through the next couple of days. But any of the storm activity through this weekend will be tied to a cold front over here into the eastern United States and dropping across the southeast today. This will drop even further south into the Gulf Coast and parts of North Florida going into Sunday, May 21st. So definitely going to be watching out for this frontal boundary. And this could be causing a threat for severe weather. It's not the highest risk of severe storms we've ever seen, but there is a marginal risk across western Georgia, Alabama, getting into Mississippi here, and eastern Louisiana, and some isolated storms across the western United States that could be severe going through later today. But the main mode of severe storms will likely be damaging winds and large hail. However, an isolated tornado will be possible across southern Tennessee, and especially getting down here into northern Alabama, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, the Huntsville region, Florence, Alabama. We'll be watching you for the threat for tornadoes. Only a 2% shading going through today. So looking at the timing of these storms, the noon time frame, we have some showers and storms from western New York State down through western PA, getting through the Charleston, West Virginia area and down into eastern Tennessee toward the Cumberland Plateau. And the southern flank of this system will see more of this severe weather trying to develop toward the noon time frame. We'll see that more into late afternoon and early evening, and we'll fire up some heavier showers and storms down across the Texas and Mexico border down here, including the Rio Grande Valley, back up toward the Fort Stockton region into West Texas, and then some isolated activity across the western United States later on this evening. Then as the sun goes down, as you guys know, the instability starts to wane, and then we lose the thunderstorm activity later on this evening toward the midnight time frame as we go into Sunday morning. And then on Sunday, a very unusual area for severe weather. We have a marginal risk, a level 1 of 5 up here across the Pacific Northwest that we have to watch into western Montana, northern Idaho, getting into eastern Washington State and eastern Oregon. This will mainly be for isolated damaging winds up to 60 miles per hour and some quarter-size hail, not really looking at a tornado threat across these areas. But going through this weekend, from now through Monday morning on May 22nd, some decent rains can be expected if you get under one of these thunderstorm cells, especially down here into south central Texas, with more widespread heavy rain across the eastern United States, especially on up here into the I-95 corridor from Boston down through Hartford, getting in towards portions of New York City, Long Island included. We could be seeing 1 to 2 inches of rain going through this weekend. So definitely a nice soaking rain for you guys. And that actually extends further north and east into parts of New Hampshire and coastal Maine. These areas could also see 1 to 2 inches of rain through this weekend time frame. But if you are enjoying today's video, definitely press the like button, the thumbs up button down below the video. I'd definitely appreciate it. As well as if you guys have not yet subscribed and you like detailed weather breakdowns on North America, including southern Canada, the United States, and the tropics, be sure to press the subscribe button down below. It's absolutely free to do, and you get all of this weather content each and every morning at 9 a.m. Central Daylight Time on this channel. I definitely appreciate that as well. But going into early next week, zooming it back out and looking at the upper level weather pattern, this ridge will begin to stretch out a little bit here across the northern United States and southern Canada, with more pressure falls underneath that, with troughing down here across the southeast. But looking at that ridge, it will be producing some nice warmth across the middle of the country, widespread 80s, some upper 80s up here into the Dakotas, getting into eastern Montana, eastern portions of Wyoming on Monday, May 22nd, and then getting into the middle of next week as we stretch that ridge a little bit further to the east, we can see some mid-80s starting to become more widespread. Des Moines, Iowa to Chicago, getting into Indianapolis here and even over into Ohio, with more 90s underneath that down into the drier areas of the southern plains getting into the middle of next week. But what we're really keeping an eye on here late next week is this trough down here and a developing low pressure system right near the coastline there of the southeast, especially over central Florida as we go into that Thursday, Friday, even Saturday time frame. And looking at the Atlantic basin for tropical storm or hurricane activity this time of year, it really starts to slowly climb with the frequency of activity, but we really start to see a nice jump in that getting towards late May and early June here. So we definitely have to keep an eye on the western Atlantic and the Gulf as well. And looking at that May 21st through the 31st time frame to close out the month of May here, the tropical cyclone origin points do show there is potential, if we have a low pressure system developed down here in the southeast, that there could be some spin ups. So we definitely have to watch out for this time of year, especially even though it's early season. And looking at the sea surface temperature anomalies, we do have some warm waters down here in the western tropical Atlantic, the Caribbean, and a lot of the Gulf is boiling right now. So any cold front, any low pressure system that can develop could definitely pose a risk for tropical weather concerns across Florida and the Carolinas even into late next week. And looking at some of the model guidance here, the GFS model, the American guidance late next week, showing more of a low pressure system, more inland, and a weaker system with just some lighter rain up there into Virginia and the Carolinas. The CMC, or the Canadian model, a lot more bullish on producing a tropical depression, if not a low-end tropical storm on this model. Definitely a very aggressive model showing this just off the coast, and that's over the warm waters we were just showing you in the western tropical Atlantic. And the European guidance, the ECMWF, is showing more of in between the GFS and the Canadian models. This is the model I have a little bit more of a nod to for the forecast going forward into late next week. I think the European model is onto something more of an in-between, probably more so of a heavy rainmaker than a wind producer, but definitely something we'll keep an eye on getting into late next week. And you definitely see this thing could be putting down some heavy rainfall. So even if we don't see a tropical depression or a tropical storm out of this at all, We definitely will be seeing our fair share of rainfall, especially down into southern Georgia, Florida, and at least the eastern coastline there of the Carolinas, from Charleston up to Myrtle Beach and even the outer banks of North Carolina later next week. So this will be a period we'll be keeping an eye on and fine tuning over the next couple of days. But looking at the long range weather pattern going through next week and really through Memorial Day weekend itself, it does look much warmer up here across the northern United States, especially the northern Rockies, the northern plains, and the upper Midwest. And this could even extend further east into the northeast as well, with more troughing underneath. We're going to have average to slightly below normal temperatures down here across the southeast, the southern plains, and the desert southwest as well, going at least through that Friday, June 2nd time frame. But looking at these temperatures, Memorial Day weekend starting on Saturday, May 27th, look at the heat building down here in the lower Mississippi Valley, low to mid 90s down here in the Arklatex and Arkla-Miss region, with 80s further north into the mid Mississippi Valley. And then watch the temperatures take off as we get into Sunday, May 28th. We have more 90s introduced, places like Des Moines, Western Illinois, mid 80s here in Chicago, and the 80-degree line actually moves into Minnesota and Wisconsin by then. And then look at Monday, Memorial Day, an early look at the temperatures. We could have a full-blown heat wave, as the European high resolution guidance does show, with mid 90s up here, potentially into the Midwest, and the upper 80s as far north as the Twin Cities and northern Wisconsin. And again, this could be a full-fledged heat wave, so we'll keep an eye on this as we go over the next few days, but definitely showing signs of our first major heat wave of the season, just in time for Memorial Day weekend itself. And looking at the precipitation outlook going through Memorial Day weekend, it does look predominantly drier up here as expected under the ridge of high pressure. We have a lot of sinking air, lots of sunshine, so we're not going to see any real heavy rainfall events or anything like that across the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, or the Northeast. But there could be some active weather with an active subtropical jet underneath that across the southwestern United States, the southern plains, and especially with that tropical system across the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida, going through that late week time frame over that Memorial Day weekend time frame. And looking back, though, across the northern United States, we do have to watch this for severe weather potential going into Saturday, May 27th. Over top of these ridges, we really have to watch this pattern with northwest flow over top of this time of year. We have to watch for more robust thunderstorm activity, showing this potentially across the Dakotas into western Minnesota on Saturday. More activity across the Dakotas potentially on Sunday. This could be more of an intense day for severe storms if everything does come together, and then more isolated to scattered activity on Memorial Day itself. Right now doesn't look like a total washout, but definitely something to keep an eye on if you do live up in the upper Midwest or the Central Plains. So looking at the total rainfall accumulation over that 3-day period of Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, Memorial Day itself, the entire weekend, it does look like some decent rains will be possible up here across the Dakotas, Minnesota, and then all the way south to Oklahoma and West Texas. Much of the eastern 2/3 of the country should remain dry underneath that ridge of high pressure, except for the Carolinas. We'll have to watch that tropical system and what that could be later next week. And it also could be active back here across the Pacific Northwest with some rain showers and storms from time to time. Not looking at a total washout. There should be plenty of dry hours over the Memorial Day weekend time frame itself. And looking at the severe weather forecast, this is my forecast for Memorial Day weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, Memorial Day itself. I do think severe weather will be possible up here anywhere you see highlighted in yellow, from the western high plains up into the northern plains and parts of the upper Midwest. This does include the Twin Cities, the Bismarck region, getting down into Rapid City, Lincoln, Nebraska, and maybe as far south and west as Denver as we go through that time frame. So we'll continue to fine tune this in the coming days. But looking at the longer range pattern, even beyond there into early June, this is the first week into June, and we see some more changes here with the ridge continuing to dominate across the eastern 2/3 of the country. So the heat will stick around even past Memorial Day itself, and we'll have more troughs starting to dive in across the desert southwest, providing us with more more active weather. You see with these green anomalies showing up on the map across the Rockies and the Central Plains, we could be introducing more active weather into early June, which could also include more severe weather returning in a big way across the western high plains. We'll definitely be able to fine tune this in the coming days, but enjoy the weather while you have it this weekend here, as it will be heating up as we get in towards later next week, and especially Memorial Day itself. Well, if you want to follow me on Twitter for additional weather forecast updates, follow me down below in the description at hweather420. I definitely appreciate it. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching each and every morning. As always, be sure to like the video, give it a thumbs up down below if you enjoyed it. Leave any comments, questions, and concerns below. I'll get to those later on today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're new, and hit the notification bell to get all of my daily weather forecast updates on this channel. Have a great Saturday, everybody, a great weekend, and I will see you all in the next video.